Welcome to week 2. This week we're going to look at integrating resources, honing in on the specifics of the argument, and starting to get the blogger up and running. So we're going to play with that for a little bit. The warm-up here has a fun little commercial on stealing words and ideas. Stealing words and or ideas would both constitute plagiarism, so make sure you're aware of that. Yeah, you can't copy someone's words, but you can't take their ideas either. You have to give credit for both. Look at this video on quote, paraphrase, summarize. It will kind of show you how to do all three of those. Now, how we're going to actually incorporate sources is a little bit different than what you'll see in the video. The video will probably talk about MLA or APA. What we're going to do is actually use links to give credit to sources. Now, understand what common knowledge is. Common knowledge, as it says here, there is no clear boundary. Basically, common knowledge means that most people should know it, like the earth is round, John F. Kennedy was the president of the United States, etc. But what might be common for some people might not be common for other people, so keep that in mind. My philosophy is when in doubt, go ahead and cite it out. You can't lose by citing something just because it might be common to some people, it might not be common to you, or vice versa. And if you're not sure, email and ask. From here, we want to look at your external evidence. And I have two pictures, one of a wheelchair and one of a cane. The reason for these pictures is because they're metaphors to illustrate. Here, the external evidence is functioning as a wheelchair, which means it is carrying the entire argument. That means that your paper is loaded with quotes. Bad idea. Down here, it's the cane. So here's your external evidence now. It's only supporting you as your ideas move through the paper. Good idea. That means your paper should not be filled with quotes, and every quote you put in the paper has got to be explained and analyzed. Which brings us to set up, execute, analyze. This one's going to be at the bottom here. You're going to see two, state, explain, evaluate. Scroll down to the bottom. You have the setup, the execution, and the analysis. In the setup, what you want to do is lead into your major point. Here the major point is the toxicity of bleached flour. The execution is proving the toxicity of bleached flour. And then the analysis is showing how this quote helps me to win the argument. Now, of course, we're not saying that diabetes would be eradicated if people stopped eating bleached flour. However, it could be prevented in some instances if people would consume whole grains instead. So keep that in mind. Every quote you use has got to be set up and it's got to be analyzed. Otherwise, there's no purpose for having the quote in there. For the act of learning this week, I'd like you to practice with an external link to your Blogger biography, which means you're going to log into Blogger and you're going to create a little biography, much like I did right here. It's just a few sentences, 5 or 6 sentences. Now, inside of that, I'd like you to have one picture of yourself, that'd be great, and 2 links to somewhere else. And these should be external links, meaning if I click them, opens a new window. Click them. I love words with friends. Opens a new window. This assignment can be found in Angel under the Dropbox homework. If you click on it, you'll see Blogger biography, 1 picture, and 2 links that open in a new window. From here, you want to start to research and to draft your first major point. Your first major point should be extremely specific, and we're going to look at that right here in the second half of week 2. Read over Vaccines and Autism blog. I want you to look at how specific this first point is. Now, he's trying to prove that vaccines are completely safe, which is a great argument, very controversial. If we look at his very first point, his opposition is in italics right there. Now, he doesn't have any links in his opposition, so it's not quite as strong because he's not referencing any cited material on the outside. It will always be stronger if there's a citation. Either way, look at how specific he is. Just Thermosol. This is how specific you need to be in your essay. Afterwards, he refutes the Thermosol argument by providing some hyperlinks. You will do the same exact thing. This is how he is citing his sources, by providing a link, and if I click on it, I can go to the information and read it for myself. This is from the CDC. Very credible. He lets the opponent speak first, and then after the opponent is done, he goes ahead and refutes what the opponent said specifically. This is Thermosol versus Thermosol. So you want to make sure yours are lined up directly as well. From here, we would go into a mock debate. This is the pro and con of fluoride. Fluoride in the tap water, you have the pro, you have the con. Now here's what I mean about matching up the points directly. As you sift through this, you'll find right here I've highlighted, fluoride exists naturally. Da-da-da. All right, that's what the opponent says. Now if I wanted to argue against that, I would need the direct opposite. And I found it right here. There are 3 basic components in fluoride. Yes, there is one that is natural. That is called sodium fluoride. The other 2 are not natural. In fact, they are added in, and according to this piece, they're some of the most reactive chemicals known to man, and they're extremely corrosive. So, what the opponent says is that fluoride is natural, right there. But I would argue that only 1/3 of that fluoride in your water is natural. The other 2/3 are very toxic chemicals. So this is what I mean by a direct correlation. You've got to have these in your paper, otherwise you're arguing against something that just doesn't exist. Understand sources and discover your own truth. Now, some people might look at this and say, hey, this isn't credible. This is WordPress.com. Who wrote this? There's no author. My philosophy is always going to be the same. I look at the information. If the information is accurate, then the source is accurate. Because you know what? Good people, credible people can lie, and people who are not credible could be telling the truth. And this is vice versa as well. Look through this information and you tell me if this is right or wrong. Did it start in 1945? Was fluoride added to the drinking water in Grand Rapids, Michigan? Lastly, in the act of learning, we want to think about getting as specific as possible. This video is going to show finding main ideas. Very basic. It's a 2-minute video, but what I want you to really look at is the topic here, general versus specific. So here's some examples. Pets would be general, but specifically we have 3 different types of pets. This is what I mean about being as specific as possible. You don't just want to tell people, yeah, I have pets, because now you're forcing that person to go, oh, well, what kind of pet do you have? Oh, I have 2 hamsters, a goldfish, and 3 dogs. When you could have said that from the very beginning. And with communication, when you communicate specifically with somebody, you don't want them to have any questions about what did you mean by that. You want the communication to be so crystal clear that no one has any questions. Now, I know that this is not always possible, but consider this when you're writing a topic. A lot of people want to write about animal testing. Well, why write about animal testing when you can write about rat testing? Which specific animal are you talking about? And what kind of testing? Is it makeup testing? Okay, how about makeup companies testing on rats? That's a lot better than animal testing. Stop dealing with generalities, start dealing with particulars. Lastly, you'd like to open up a new post in Blogger and begin the research essay.